I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. This is a regular meeting for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
I will. Tim Hale, are you on the line? Madam Mayor, he's supposed to be calling in. Stephanie Nowers.
Here?
Dee McKee. Here. Robert Yunt.
Here.
Bill Gamble.
Here.
Dimitri Fonoff.
Here.
And I am expecting Ron Bernier also, Madam Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there anything any of the members would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, I'll give you a minute, ma'am.
Is that a resolution or AM?
Resolution 24050. 24041.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
The second one is 24041 and 24042. And that ought to do it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have anything from the consent agenda they would like to pull? Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda that anyone would like to make? Okay, seeing none, then the agenda is approved. If you'll all stand, please, and I've asked Coach Christensen to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Well, as you know, this, for all of you that don't know, I've known Coach Christensen since he was probably half that size, half that tall. Were you? I think I can remember Buster's dad and your dad when you guys first founded the intramural football program here in Palmer, because I don't think they had one at that time. You guys did that when you guys were probably junior high, I think, or something.
Yeah, 8.
You were 8?
8, 9, yeah, a little.
Oh, okay, so you were a third of that size. Okay, so anyway, so when I read these words, they're very meaningful to me as well as to them. Where it is with a great honor and privilege that we recognize you for your outstanding contributions to our community in the field of sports coaching. And whereas you have exemplified dedication and passion throughout your career, spanning an impressive 28 seasons. You're not even that old, are you? 28 seasons? During which you led your teams to remarkable achievements, including 159 wins, 6 trips to the title game, and what, state championship, right? And whereas your coaching abilities have earned you numerous accolades, including multiple Coach of the Year awards, you've held a distinguished record for the most wins in a career in the state. And your exceptional coaching, mentorship, and educational contributions have left a mark in our community, shaping the lives of countless youth and inspiring excellence both on and off the field. Plus, you raised a wonderful family that we have represented. So you will be inducted into the Alaska School Activity Association Hall of Fame, serving as a fitting tribute to your dedication, passion, and outstanding achievements. You're only the third person to ever represent Palmer High to be inducted and to be especially selected as your first year of eligibility. And it pains me that Senator Stoltz is not here tonight because he's really was the one. And I think he's on the plane to Montana, I think. Thou, I therefore, Edna DeVries, Mayor of the Mat-Su Borough, do hereby proclaim our heartfelt recognition and honor to Coach Rod Christensen, to his wife Temple. I know you played a little bit of part, just a little, and for his remarkable career and induction in the ASAA Hall of Fame. We extend our deepest gratitude for the unwavering commitment to the youth in our community and to your service to the field of sports coaching. And so I have the proclamation here, and if you want to bring, do the kid, family want to come up? He said he's taking some pictures.
Oh, sure. Guys,
So-
I'll be in a picture.
The next proclamation I don't have anybody to receive it because it's for all of us in the borough. And the Mat-Su Borough recognizes the importance of faith and prayer in fostering unity, strength within our community, and whereas the National Day of Prayer, established by the United States Congress in 1952 and observed annually on the first Thursday of May, serves as a time for people of all faiths to come together in prayer for our nation, its leaders, and its citizens. And whereas the 73rd Annual Day of Prayer to be observed is Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, provides an opportunity for individuals and communities across our nation to join in prayer, seeking guidance, wisdom, and blessings for our country. And whereas the theme for 2024 National Day of Prayer is Light Up the Word, Light Up the World, reminds us of the transformation, power of prayer and faith, and the importance of spreading the light of hope, love, and compassion to all the corners of the world. Now, therefore, I, Edna DeVries, Mayor of the Mat-Su Borough, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 as the National Day of Prayer in our borough. And there will be several gatherings, one in Palmer, one in Wasilla during the day, and one in Willow, and then an evening service in Wasilla also. We encourage the residents to join together in prayer, reflection, and fellowship, recognizing the profound impact that faith and spirituality have in our lives and in our communities. Thank you. So let the record show that Assemblyperson Hale has joined us right after the roll call. And Assembly Bernier arrived at 6:09. Okay. So the next items on our agenda is the minutes of preceding meetings. Are there any changes to the minutes that have been presented? They are from the regular assembly meeting on the 19th of March and on the joint assembly school board meeting on the 26th of March. and the regular assembly meeting on the 2nd of April. Okay, seeing or hearing no changes, the meeting minutes are approved as presented. Next item is agency reports. I don't see anybody from any of the cities, I don't think, no. And Kitty, you have a report for us? Great, thank you. Kitty is from the school district.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly, Manager Brown. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. For the record, I'm Katie Gardner, Deputy Superintendent for the Mat-Su-Borough School District. This week marks our first ever School Safety Week. It is a week that we had planned months ago and hope to make an annual event where we highlight and bring awareness to school safety issues. Whether those are our normal drills, outdoor safety for students given our beautiful environment, or other emergency preparedness drills, that's kind of what we plan to highlight throughout this week. I will say that, though, after the events of this past weekend and some of the residual effects that those will have naturally on the school environment, one of our biggest messages today is really in support and thank you for our law enforcement partners, both the Wasilla Police Department, the Palmer Police Department, and the Alaska State Troopers. We've had an increased presence in our schools the last couple of days. That has really been out of an abundance of caution and to make sure that we're able to articulate and demonstrate to our students, our staff, and our community that we are committed to having a safe school environment. So be on the lookout for additional school safety awareness items throughout the rest of this week. And again, it's something that we hope to do on an annual basis. I also just wanted to mention that the school district is going to be developing and putting together a Safe Schools Act task force. The school board at the last meeting after the assembly passed resolution asking the board to take action on Senate Bill 173 does have a resolution that they'll be considering at their meeting tomorrow night. And part of our due diligence in reviewing that is to develop a task force where we'll have stakeholders and include our law enforcement partners, firearms experts, and other relevant individuals who will help us understand more about what a program might need to look like in our schools moving forward. So we'll have additional insight to be able to share as that bill possibly progresses and to be able to inform the board on next steps. A couple of events happening this week is Wasilla High School on April 18th will have their NC3 signing day. So many of you have seen what a signing day looks like for individuals who are committing to colleges for athletics. This mirrors that only in the trades world. So Wasilla High has really a world-class CTE department, and they are having a signing day for a number of employees who are going to be having students commit to go into those trades and work for them. That will be on the 18th, I think around 2 o'clock. We do have a regular school board meeting this week. That'll be tomorrow at Butte Elementary. The regular meeting starts at 6 o'clock. And then finally, of course, we are monitoring very closely the recent ruling related to correspondence allotments. We're working through what next steps might look like, keeping in close contact with the state. We, of course, want to make sure that we are compliant, but that we are ready to support our charter school families to the full extent. So just so the Assembly knows, we're watching that very closely and we'll be sending out messaging as appropriate. So
Good.
Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak, and I will see you in the coming weeks.
Okay. All righty, thank you very much. The next item is the state of Alaska, and normally we do have Todd here, but he's not with us this evening. But he did provide a letter from the State Department of Education on that court case. You've probably seen that, I think, and all the assembly has been made aware of that. I understand there has not been a joint assembly school board committee on school issues, so we don't have anything there. Are there any public relations reports from the assembly? Okay, the only one I have is with the mayors, South Central mayors still continue to meet. Our technical committee on energy is providing us with data. I try to send that out to all of the assembly members, any of the meeting updates, and if anybody in the public would like to see any of those or listen to our meetings, they are all published on the Municipality of Anchorage's website. And if you have some problems accessing that, or you can't find it or something, just reach out to my office and we'll make all of that available to you. Today at Wasilla Chamber, we did have MEA come and talk to us. Of course, they were talking about what happens in April 2028, which is when their contract ends. So anyway, there is, and I don't think the chamber meetings are recorded, but they were there at that time. Mr. Brown, do you have?
No, Madam Mayor, I don't have a report this evening. I do see a white Honda Pilot with its lights on in the parking lot. So if that's you,
Okay.
I can't tell if there's anyone in it, but probably better to say something than not, that's all.
Okay, all righty. And Mr. Attorney, report.
I do not have a report, and I can't see any cars with lights on.
Madam Clerk, do you have a report?
The clerk's report is in your red folder. Also attached to that are all the budget public hearings. We've got 2 next week, April 23rd, next Tuesdays, out at Willow. And just a reminder, they're gonna have treats for you guys over at the museum in the log cabin. So if you wanna go up early, they are prepared to show you around the cabin and provide you some food there. And then next Thursday at 6 p.m., we'll be at the Menard Center. And then April 30th, we will be back here in Assembly Chambers.
Okay, anybody have any questions about them? Okay, alrighty, the next item that we have on the agenda is citizens and other correspondence. Is there any comments about the citizens or other correspondence from any of the assembly members? Okay, hearing none, they are presented. And Madam Clerk.
I am 24090, reporting the conclusion of contract for bid 2277B with Pinnacle Construction for a final contract amount of $493,620 for the station 12-5 water storage design build.
Are there any comments on the IM? Okay, seeing and hearing none, it is presented. And we do not have any persons to be heard. And Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Ordinance 24037, an ordinance approving the sale of certain borough-owned real property acquired through tax foreclosure for delinquent real property tax years 2017, 2016, and prior, and not needed for public purpose. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, please press *3.
Okay. Okay. All right, okay, thank you. Staff report. Hi, Jill.
Good evening to the Assembly through the Mayor. My name is Jill Ursick. I'm the Land Disposal and Foreclosure Specialist working with the Land and Resource Management Division. The ordinance in front of you is for approval to hold our tax and LID foreclosure sale. This one is a little bit different than the ones that you've seen in the past because finally we're going online, hopefully. We have we're gonna be going forward with a solicitation to hire an online auction services with the goal of having both an online as well as in-person auction. So no more sealed bid, spending 2 hours opening envelopes, working with all the paperwork. We've also, we're directed to kind of speed up the process when we can. So this will be the first of 2 sales that we're hoping to hold this year. This sale, with the Assembly approval, will be held June 22nd. There's 49 properties on the list in front of you, but some of those properties have been paid off already, which would leave us with a total of 43 properties at this time.
Okay, questions? No? Questions of staff? No? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 24-037. We do have a sign-up sheet, but if you haven't signed up, we will still give you opportunity. So the first person that signed up is Tracy Bannister. And the mic is green, so that means it's on, sir, so you can just talk.
name's
Just give
Tracy
us your name
Branstetter.
and then,
And my property's in foreclosure, and I need to.
would you state your name? Did you state your
Tracy
name?
Branstetter,
Thank you very much. Go ahead now.
and my property's in foreclosure. I've been out of state for 5 years, and it was under somebody else's care, and they weren't paying it. So I got $10,000 to put down on it, and I wanted to see if I could get some more time to catch it up. Can't afford to lose it, so.
Okay. All right. Everything else to say?
about it. That's just what I need. Not sure what to say, so
Okay. All right.
I can catch it up. I mean, if I just have a little more time, so.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Crystal Lockwood?
My father had property.
Would you-
Kevin.
Crystal, would you
Harless.
pull the mic down just a little and state your name first and then go ahead and talk? Thank you. There you are. Thank you very much.
I'm Crystal Lockcook, and my father had property Kevin Harless Sr., and it's in foreclosure, and I was wanting to take over the ownership of the property. He passed away, and he never filled out a will, but he wanted his kids and grandkids to like stay there, and was like having a dream of calling it like Harlessville or something. But I was seeing if you guys would let me be able to take ownership. But I have money to pay for the taxes and stuff. Just I haven't yet because I wasn't sure how to get it switched over to my name. Or
It's okay. If you don't have anything else to say, that's fine, or if you do, go ahead.
yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I mean, if I'd be able to get ownership and pay for it and get it off the foreclosure.
Are you done? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify on this ordinance 24-037? Do we have anybody online, sir? We do not. So one last time, anybody in the audience that would like to testify on this ordinance? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the, oh, and Rob had. Okay, go ahead, sir.
I can wait till it's time for us to ask.
Hmm?
He said he can wait until Ron is.
Oh, okay, so.
I
it's
move to
back.
adopt
Okay.
ordinance 24-037,
Go ahead, sir.
and I'll have Rob speak to it.
Okay, all right, yes.
Yeah, sorry. I believe if somebody has money, the one gentleman says he's got 10,000, that's gonna extend this, so I don't wanna speak, if I'm not factually correct, but Mike, that would extend that, would it not, depending on what they owe, I believe, or can we get someone to come up and clarify that?
So the accounts need to be paid in full prior to them being returned back to the former property owner. So depending on how much that account is delinquent, the 10,000, if that account is 10,000 delinquent, then we would be able to return it to the former record owner. If it's more than 10,000 delinquent, he would have to pay the entire account in full prior to it being pulled.
Question?
Do you want to have the attorney weigh in?
So-
I think, does the assembly have, let me ask you this basic question. Does the assembly have the power at this time to pull either one or two or any other of the properties that's listed in the ordinance?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so, yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Could you please get with the two people that came up and spoke and find out which one of their lands are in the young girl with her father's land?
Absolutely.
And then the gentleman with 10,000, and see if we can
So Mr. Branstad,
Get some-
Mr. Branstetter's property is TS 4533 on your list with the ordinance, and I wasn't able to catch the name of the property with the other person.
Okay.
Okay. And let's see, Assemblyperson McKee, did you have your light on earlier and haven't recognized you yet?
Yeah, I did gonna ask the same thing that Rob did. How do we do that? Do we just pull them out and vote on that, or?
Well, I guess we'll be looking for the clerk to give us whether we could, I guess, divide the question, right? Or just make an amendment to pull, whatever.
If I could,
Please
Madam Mayor.
advise, Yeah.
We do, Assemblymember Bernier already has a list of properties that they've paid their taxes, so those need to come off tonight. This could just be, you don't need to divide the question. The amendment would be to the IM, and then just pulling those properties off.
So, yeah, yeah.
Well, I think, I want to make sure people's questions are answered first, so
Yeah.
did that make sense, Assemblymember McKee?
It does, but when we pull them, how does that process work? Does the department say, okay, you've got like 4 years to do this, or 6 months, or what happens?
Mr. Sprout?
Oh, excuse me,
The
Nick, I
attorney.
should ask you that.
So what's before you tonight is prove the sales of properties that are in foreclosure, the borough holds clerk's deed, and they're not needed for public purpose. The goal of this foreclosure scheme in the state statutes is for the borough to be able to collect the tax monies that it's owed. So if you say to the borough staff, do not sell these properties at this time, that does not mean that their interest will keep accruing. Penalties are probably over. Penalties will keep accruing. So, and the added taxes that will be due this August and next February will keep growing. So the tax liability does not go away. What the borough assembly would be saying is directing staff, do not put it in the sale at this time. What will happen is, at the manager's discretion, these properties may be included in a future request for sales. I know that the staff had indicated this was TS 45-33. Mr. Branson. According to the IM, the tax liability is $45,000, and it will only go north. Even if he makes a payment of $10,000 and starts paying off, unless and until it's paid off, it will be in the borough's name. State statute gives him 10 years from the date of clerk's deed. If he doesn't repurchase within 10 years of the date of the deed, that we got the deed, and I don't know when that was, his rights of repurchase get cut off. So there is a limit, there is an outer limit to it, but the net result of pulling it off does not absolve taxes, does not waive penalties, does not stop them from continue to accrue. It just means it won't be sold. They can keep trying to redeem it or repurchase it.
Okay. Further assembly comments? Anyone else have questions of the clerk or Assemblyperson Nowers? Go ahead.
So just following up on Ms. McKee's question, so would it make sense for the assembly to put a timeline on this and say, delay sale for a year or, and then put it back on sale unless payments have been made?
I mean, you can give direction to the manager on what to do with that. You couldn't approve the sale tonight. It would have to come back anyway in a future ordinance for a future sale, whether that's later this year, next year, the year after, and you can kind of give staff direction on how you'd like to see that. But your motion tonight would be to strike these properties off this list, is all you would need to do.
So, quick follow-up, so we don't need to make it in the motion that there's a year, we can just direct the manager if
Correct.
payments are made, fantastic, if not, please bring this back to us.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Rob, did you have further?
Mike, would it be easier for us to put a time certain on this, like if 90 or 180 days, or would you just want a motion for an amendment on these two pieces of property until you?
Through the mayor, I was thinking a year, so
Okay.
if you want to do that because that's your will, to be certain, that'd be the best way to do it, otherwise it'll probably bring it back next year at this
I don't
time.
know the two numbers of the lots, but I'd like to make a motion to postpone these two specific sites for 12 months.
Can you,
And that-
if I could, Madam Mayor,
Yes,
if you
go
could
ahead.
move to pull them off the list for a
Okay.
year?
Yeah, if I
And
could,
that would be TS 4533 and what other one, Jill?
TS 4532. 32 and 33, as well as the ones that got paid off.
so that would be my amendment, if we could
Okay.
please pull those
Well,
two off for 12 months.
Yeah, or should we take the amendment the staff wants to have and then add those two, or do them separately, ma'am clerk?
I don't know if all the assembly members would be for or against this particular amendment, so I think we should probably do it separately.
Okay, okay, all right. Anyone else have just general discussion? Yes, Assemblyperson Faunoff, before we, oh, I have, okay, he did move, okay, sorry. So,
I think the lady in the pink was talking very quietly, but I think there's two separate things. One of them is we have a previous owner, because I actually I previously bought a few of these property, but the gal was saying that it belonged to her father, so she doesn't have ownership, so there's a different, little bit of different setting. So just because it's paid off, it does not automatically makes it hers from just what she said. So there's, I want to make sure whoever is working with that, relate that, because there seems like first need to be a will or something like that. So make sure that that is clarified, because I think, I just brought up from what I noticed that it was a little different situation, so. Just delaying this for her does not resolve the problem of the ownership, from what I'm understanding.
To Assemblymember Funoff through the mayor, that's absolutely correct. Statute says that if an account gets brought current, we have to return the property to the former record owner. This, in this case, being her father. So the borough, once the account gets paid in full, the borough would do a repurchase quitclaim deed back to the former record owner. And at that point, it's going to be a civil matter. And I did explain that to her out in the hall just now, that it wouldn't be in her name.
Okay, but anybody can make a payment,
Correct.
make it current, it'll go back to the previous owner, and then they can decide if they can.
Correct.
No, okay, I just want to make sure whoever, which you already did, thank you so much.
Yep.
okay, Rob, go ahead.
If I could follow up with staff, so the repurchase quitclaim deed, if it's paid in full, we execute that. They don't have to sign on that. Her father, who's obviously deceased now, he doesn't have to sign. Anybody can quitclaim property to anybody.
So to Assemblymember Yunt, through the mayor, the repurchase quitclaim deed is just the borough releasing its interest in the property.
I know, I know this already, I'm just asking so that she understands that her dad doesn't have to come sign this.
Correct.
Yeah. And then I would advise getting with an attorney, and they will help you get that back eventually. It's gonna take some time, but in the meantime, if you get the taxes paid, it won't get taken away, and then you can work through the legal process to get title to it eventually, hopefully. So, thanks.
Okay, now discussion just on the amendment to pull these two properties, okay? Assemblyperson Faunoff.
The number that was brought up for the total to redeem was 40-something. I'd like to know, because I don't have the list in front of me, what was the other past due balance on that 32, I believe? The balance? The tax behind the balance.
So you're asking for the amount owed on that property?
Yeah.
That up real quick. So that amount owed on that property looks like it's about $2,300.
Okay, thank you.
Assemblyperson McKee.
Maybe I don't need to say anything right yet, because what we're voting for now only is to pull those two off here.
Pull
Okay, great.
those two off, yeah, yeah. Any further discussion? Any objection to the amendment? Okay, all righty, and,
Assemblymember Bernier's got two more
okay,
amendments.
all righty.
I move to amend Exhibit A attached to IM 24-066 to remove the following properties from the land sale. TS 4501, TS 4502, TS 45-28, TS 45-29, TS 45-30, and TS 45-31. These are properties that have been taxes paid on them.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment to pull those that the taxes have been paid since the time the agenda was set and today. Any objection to that amendment? Seeing no objection, that amendment passes. Go ahead, sir.
I move to amend IM 24-066, second page, fourth paragraph, by striking the last sentence in the paragraph and replacing it with the following. The cost for the online auction service will be via a flat rate that is divided amongst the sale properties and added to the minimum bid amount.
Discussion on that amendment? Oh, yes, Assemblyperson Hours.
I just had a question about it. So, we have 40-some properties for sale. If we sell one of them and it cost us, I don't know, $5,000, or I don't know how much the online cost, but if it costs $5,000 and we're amortizing the cost over 40 properties, but only one sold, like, we're not gonna recoup our online auction costs if we do it this way and they don't sell, I guess is what I'm trying to figure out. Where we'd get, and then we'd have to offer them over the counter, so, yeah, go ahead.
Can we have the Ms.
Yeah.
Ms. Jill?
Jill, come. Mhm.
To Assembly members Nowers, through the mayor. Am I doing that right? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So the way that the statute reads is that the minimum bid is made up of taxes owed, fees, fines, penalties, and the cost of the sale. So that minimum bid price is made up of all these different pieces. That price, or that minimum bid, is what a person will need to pay in order to either repurchase the property. So a former record owner would then, at that time, once that cost gets approved, or applied, will have to pay that price to get their property back, or it's the price that we will start at with a competitive sale for the minimum bid. So it's one way or the other, that price will get paid.
Assemblyperson Hours.
Only if somebody buys it or pays off their debts, it will get paid.
Correct.
And then, do you have any kind of ballpark how much it costs to do these online auctions?
When we were doing the research, we see about 40,000 as the top level for everything that we're gonna want, which is to include an in-person component. So it'd be both online as well as in-person. That divided amongst the 43 properties at this point was coming out to be about $930 per property for the cost of the sale. And so that would be added to the minimum bid price of each of the properties.
Wow.
That's in substitution to doing a buyer's premium, which was the original legislative intent, whereas the buyer's premium could be as high as 10% of the winning bid. And we have no idea of knowing what the winning bid might be. Last year's sale, we had our high bid was for a 0.06 acre in downtown Tequitna. They owed about $4,000 in taxes. The winning bid was $77,000. So that means that the 10% of the $77,000 would be $7,700 on top of what the bid was. So we felt like this one was a little bit of the even out to amongst all the properties without being onerous on just the winners.
So if we are gonna have this sale and it's gonna cost $40,000, and then we put these properties up for sale again, like if some of them don't sell, and we put them in a future auction, are we gonna be tacking on $900 and then $900? Like, are we gonna just be making?
Since this is the first time we're going forward with an online sale, the procedures are a little squishy at this point, but we can, because it is considered a cost of the sale, so statute says that we can. Bottom line, we just want to get these properties back onto the tax rolls, and we're looking for the fastest way of doing that.
Okay, thank you. I guess discussion-wise, I'm just weighing the imposition, and maybe
This might
Ron
help.
can speak to that on the other people that have to pay back.
So last year, when we had the sale, there was, 40 some odd properties or so?
By the time the sale came around, we had 33 properties left.
Okay, and they all sold?
They all sold but one. There was one that did not sell.
Even on the
Correct.
outcry?
Correct. The year before that, there was about 35 properties, every single one of them sold. The year before that, there was, 30 some odd properties, every single one of them sold. The last several years, we have sold every single property. I have 2 properties currently on my less than 10-year plus shelf. That's all that we have for an over-the-counter sale right now.
It's pretty
Okay.
lucrative.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Okay, yes, Assemblyperson
I'm
Palmer.
gonna staff again, I'm sorry, I think. So, if we have the let's just say it's $40,000 fee, divide them evenly, so regardless of some properties, because some of them are just only a couple thousand, some of them are, I've seen as high as closer to over 100,000 properties. So same fee will apply to each, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But if it was the buyer's premium and at 10%, was that something that auction takes, or that's something that we would add buyer's premium? Because if it's 10% and one land sells for 100 grand, that's 10,000 already. So we only need, few more of those, and that is so where is the auctions charging flat fee, or they're charging the percentage?
To Assemblymember Fana through the mayor, we don't know yet. We don't have the solicitations out yet. And so when we have put the solicitation out, we have asked for a flat fee, but it's up to this body. If we'd like to go to buyer's premium, I guess that's pretty common in the auction line of work. So a buyer's premium is also an option that we could go with. The buyer's premium, to understand, the 10% of the winning bid would go to pay that fee for whatever it costs for the auction services. So if after 5, it's not necessarily the flat rate of 40,000. Once that met, we're good to go. It's every single winning bid for all 43 properties. 10% of those winning bids will go to the auction company.
Okay, I want to get what's the best deal for us, so ultimately, and in like equipment world, when I've purchased before, like if it's $1,000 to $5,000, it would be one flat fee, and then but then after if it's over, let's say $50,000, it's just also already it's capped. The fees are also capped, so that as long as we recoup our money, I'm okay with it. But I just think for the smaller lots that are only a couple thousand, hitting them with $900 tag equally with the one that is $100,000 property is maybe not as evenly divided. So I want to explore options so that it's somewhat relative to the price that it's sold. But that's just my opinion on that.
Further questions of the Assembly? Is there any objection? Let's see, we're on the amendment,
We're on the
right?
amendment, yes.
Yeah, any objection to the amendment? Would you say the amendment again, please? Oh, sure. I'll have the clerk do it.
The amendment is to change the IM to, on the 4th paragraph, last sentence, to change the wording to the cost of the online auction services will be via a flat rate that is divided amongst the sale properties and added to the minimum bid amount.
Okay, any objection to that amendment? Okay, hearing none, and that amendment, it has passed. So now we have before us ordinance 24-037 as amended. Discussion on the ordinance. Any objection? Oh, yes, Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
When Mr. Yunt was talking about making a time certain, where did that fall in or out of what we're talking about right now? Was that an amendment, or was it just a discussion?
Go ahead.
That was the first amendment.
Okay,
And it was already passed.
yes, thanks.
Is there any objection to ordinance 24-037 as amended? Okay, hearing none, legislation passes. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 24041, an ordinance accepting and appropriating a grant in the amount of $97,000 from the Alaska State Department of Military and Veterans Affairs 2022 State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program for reducing cyber risk at the borough, with accompanying resolution 24037, a resolution approving the scope of work and budget for a grant in the amount of $97,000 from the Alaska State Department of Military and Veterans Affairs 2022 State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Go ahead, staff.
Through the mayor to the assembly, Cheyenne Heindel, Finance Director. Before you is an accept and appropriate from the state of Alaska, Department of Military and Veterans Affairs for a cybersecurity grant. This grant is to be used for end-user security awareness and training and a security assessment.
Questions to staff? Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 24-041, and I guess we do not have a sign-up sheet. Anyone in the audience that would like to testify on this ordinance, please do so now. Okay, hearing no one, do we have no one? We do not have anybody online. So one more chance for anybody here, okay? With that, I'll close the public hearing and Assemblyperson Bennett.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-041 and resolution 24-037.
Okay, discussion, questions by the Assembly? Any objections to the ordinance or the resolution? Seeing and hearing none, the legislation passes. Madam Clerk?
Ordinance 24043, an ordinance accepting and appropriating January 2022 Mat-Su windstorms disaster relief funds in the amount of $30,625.66 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and $10,208.55 from the Alaska State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management with accompanying resolution 2440. A resolution approving the scope of work and budget for emergency protective measures as a result of the January 2022 Mat-Su windstorms disaster. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Staff?
Through the mayor to the assembly, Cheyenne Heindel, Finance Director. Before you again is a grant agreement to accept and appropriate funding from both FEMA and the state of Alaska to reimburse the borough for emergency protective measures that resulted from the windstorms.
Questions to staff? Seeing none, thank you. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 24-043 and resolution 24-040. No sign-up sheet, nobody online. Anyone would like to testify on either this ordinance or resolution? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then I will close the public hearing. Assemblyperson Benier.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-043 and resolution 24-040.
In discussion, questions by the Assembly? Any objection to the legislation? Hearing and seeing none, the legislation passes. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 24044, an ordinance accepting and appropriating additional national opioid settlement funding totaling $147,203.08 from the Manufacturers and Traders Trust Company for opioid settlement relief with accompanying resolution 24041, a resolution amending the scope of work and budget for opioid settlement relief. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Staff again, thank you.
Through the mayor to the assembly, Cheyenne Heindel, Finance Director. Before you is it accept and appropriate of opioid money that will be utilized in our opioid grant program.
Questions to staff? Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 24-044 and resolution 24-041. Is there no sign-up sheet again? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to testify on either this ordinance or this resolution? And nobody online either. Thank you, sir. One last chance. Okay. I'll close the public hearing. Assemblyperson Benier.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-044 and resolution 24-041.
Discussion by the Assembly. Any objection to the legislation? Seeing and hearing none, the legislation passes. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 24046, an ordinance accepting and appropriating $273,039 from the school district for the Mat-Su Central School construction with accompanying resolution 2443, a resolution amending the scopes of work and budgets for the Houston Middle School rebuild project at the Mat-Su Central School, and the Mat-Su Central School construction. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Staff, go ahead.
Through the mayor of the assembly, Cheyenne Heindel, Finance Director. Before you is an accept and appropriate of $273,000 from the district to fund construction management and 3 additive alternates that they wanted in the school for Matsu Central. We're also appropriating $1 million that was left over from the construction of Houston High School to provide a contingency for that, for Matsu Central also, because construction costs are at the limit of what we had budgeted originally for them. So there is no adequate construction contingency.
Questions to staff? Okay.
So there was $1 million left over from Houston High rebuild?
Yes, there was.
Surprising.
Oh, yeah, look at his eyes light up. Thank you. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 24-046 and resolution 24-043. We do not have a sign-up sheet. Nobody, okay. Anyone in the audience that would like to testify on either this ordinance or this resolution? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. Assemblyperson Benier, go ahead.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-046 and resolution 24-043.
Discussion by the assembly. Any objection to the legislation by the assembly? Okay, hearing and seeing none, then the legislation passes. The next item is audience participation. We do have a sign-up sheet, and we will do those first, and then we'll also open it up to the regular public. Nicholas, is that right, sir? Yeah. So just state your name and talk to us about it.
My name is Nicholas McQuillan. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Assembly members. I'm doing this for a school project, so it's just
Okay,
a quick little
great.
speech. I'm speaking on behalf of my community in the Butte. I just would first like to share a verse from 1 Corinthians 4:2 and from a little snippet from an article. 1 Corinthians 4:2 states, "Moreover, it is required of stewards that they are found trustworthy." And in that article, this lady, Alyssa Costello, she states that while we're residing in nature, we're also given an important task to nurture it as much as it nurtures us. And the reason that I'm bringing forth this idea of stewardship is because recently, when hiking the Butte with my friends, I noticed that there was an alarming amount of litter and dog droppings in the area, and it upset me quite a bit. The reason it upset me was when I did further studies in this, I found a study from Corpus Christi in Texas that stated that rain runoff can cause the droppings to go into the local water in the areas, such as ponds. I know there aren't many water areas in the Butte area, such as ponds or lakes. There's Falk Lake. But it can cause an algae to grow that can be harmful to humans and can kill fish. And granted, there isn't any water in that area, but there are local farms and the local reindeer farm, and I live in that area, so it's kind of alarming to hear that. And also, there's a program, I would just like to, if these papers could get handed out, has my information on it for you guys. Just as an example, there's a city called Bellingham in Washington. They have a program that shows that, we scoop poop in Washington that raises awareness for why it's important to scoop the poop that is left by our animals, because you can get E. coli from the droppings, and it's very polluting. So I think that we need to raise awareness for it. I would just like to say that, if we do not try to adopt a program such as the one in Washington, then the trail will end up being as unfavorable as it was last winter when I was with my friends, because there was so much snow. It was a fixed path, and we were forced to step into the droppings and the trash, and it was disgusting, and it smelled really bad, and I didn't like it. And I think that because we live in a state that's as beautiful as Alaska and is probably the most beautiful state in America, we can all agree, I feel like we should be held to a higher standard. The biggest challenge in all of this really is going to be changing the minds of the people who are ignorant and think carelessly and don't know this. I know that you guys put forth your best efforts, such as putting up billboards and doggy bag stations and whatever, but I think that we should try to raise awareness just a little bit more. Though this will be a hard problem to address, I just think that, there might be pollution going on right now that we don't know about, and the integrity of those trails might just already be deteriorating because of the ignorance of some, and they don't know, and I don't blame them. I myself will try to be a voice in this matter by trying to raise awareness and tell people that, you should clean up after yourself. I mean, you should clean up after yourself. We don't want to leave trash around. I want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm deeply honored to be representative of my God and my community. Please consider my argument. Do not let my words fall on deaf ears. I know that you all make the best decision for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Travis?
Hello,
Hi, Travis.
hello. My name is Travis. I live in Palmer, and I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk last time about getting some more glass recycling, a way for people in the Matsu borough to recycle their glass, because I have a lot of glass bottles, and the only two places that I could think to recycle glass is either go all the way to Anchorage or go to Target, because they have a glass recycling area, and even that's full. So, and me being who used to work at the recycling center, they've talked about this for quite some time, but they don't have a way to properly recycle glass. So I would like perhaps you could probably raise some money for a glass recycling machine or something like that. And also tied with recycling, I would like to see more what is it called? The transfer of drop-offs for people to recycle. People whether they live in Trapper Creek or Big Lake or all the way in Glacier View. It's really easy to find a place to throw your trash, but not an easy way to recycle. So I would like to see more recycling areas, recycle these big bins, those recycling dumpsters in the transfer sites, so that it'll give people the option to recycle. I think the last time that I gave you the recycle pamphlets, I probably should do that again, because it lists all the transfer sites that they also have in their program, and I like to see more of that. And also, I haven't talked about this here before, but since this is the borough we're speaking about, food security. I think it's about time that we give new people who are moving here an incentive to have small farms to improve our food security. So that's something to think about. We have Point McKenzie, which has a lot of farmland, and I like to have it stay as farmland, because we'll need it in the future. But also around Willow, Trapper Creek area, up in Talkeetna area, when you drive along the Parks Highway, there's a lot of burnt trees. So I was thinking, an idea is to use all the burnt trees, take them down, use it for whatever lumber they can use it for, and also be a good way to pave way for more agriculture in that area. Something to think about, and if you want to talk more about it, I'm willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good timing.
Jackie?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly. My name is Jackie Goforth. I'd like to talk to you tonight about nonprofit organizations. They're also known as NGOs. That stands for non-governmental organization. And while we've been going about our daily business, NGOs have been popping up, and we've been advocating power to them until they're pretty much running the show. Because how could anyone question them with the wonderful works they do? They portray they're doing charitable things, wonderful things, when what they're really doing is operating off your money and using your brand to bolster and profit their own agenda. They're building themselves up on your brand under the guise of charity, all while proclaiming all the wonderful things they do. If you look closely, you'll see it. What they're trying to do is insulate themselves with all the good works they speak of. Think about it. The wonderful things they do are hiding the fact they're really socialists who only represent one side, and that's the leftist ideology. I brought you an example from the Palmer Museum of History and Art, NGO. The museum is located in a very small, quaint building in Palmer, and yet management is contracted out an NGO that lists 9 directors for this building, 9. There's barely room in the parking lot for that amount of vehicles. Their mission statement says that they exist to preserve the city's collection of historic artifacts while serving to promote the history of Greater Palmer area. So why did they put out a post that says, when thinking of Palmer's history, it's unfortunately easy to believe the narrative that it began in 1935. That people came in 1935 and occupied the land that was depopulated by violence, disease, and displaced by colonizing forces. None of that has any historic accuracy in fact. It was completely and totally virgin wilderness territory, which I got them to admit. It's obvious, isn't it, why they do this? Because ushering in Marxism requires social strife. You use any criteria, race, gender, religion, sexual orientation. It also requires children to be under government control. The American Library Association mission statement says they exist to promote library service and librarianship, to provide leadership to the development of library and information services in order to enhance learning and ensure access to information for all. The ALA was not founded 147 years ago to produce events, do lap sits, Lego Day, push for rent-free space in a library, and it surely wasn't founded to sexualize children by distributing obscene content that's hidden between the covers so the parents won't even know about it. Nor does the ALA exist so they can speak out excoriating the public, as well as elected officials on city councils, boroughs, and school boards, and actually anyone who challenges them. I thank you so much for passing Ordinance 24-039. I will be here for the budget session, I think it's on the 30th, to request we cease funding through our libraries, our borough, libraries memberships to the ALA. It's a Marxist organization pretending, just like Pinocchio, they're pretending how wonderful they are, but they're dragging you down into something we want to be in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that would like to address the assembly on any topic?
Good evening. My name is Mary Robinson. I'm a borough resident, and I represent myself. I always try to clear up at least one piece of misinformation and in regards to the libraries, and there have been several people that have spoken over the past few weeks about the graphic adaptation of the Anne Frank diary. And just to clarify, the graphic novel was authorized by the Anne Frank Foundation, so anything in there that someone found offensive, it was taken from her diary. So I don't know what to tell you. The other thing about fiction is a wonderful thing. An author takes the time to build a world, create characters, and I was at the school board LCAC last week, and one of the members, which it's their right, I will defend this to the death, that the whole point of free speech is that anyone and everyone can say what they wish. One of the members was concerned that in a fantasy book, elves and fairies were having sex and that was bestiality. No, that is not bestiality. So that is my housekeeping, clearing up two misinformation. I am curious, at the April 2nd Matsu board meeting, when Assemblymember Fanov asked why no one had come forward with a solution, Ordinance 24-039, if Member Fanov was asking that question of people speaking against the formation of a MSB LCAC, the solution is following and adhering the surprisingly well-crafted 16-page library collection development policy, which includes Appendix 4, Matsu Borough Library Challenged Materials Policy, which was updated as recently as December 14th of 2023. If indeed that policy had been followed, there would not be this incestuous pandering to special interest groups. I say incestuous because somewhat difficult for the average person to separate all the groups involved in pressing access to information and apparently trying to suppress access to libraries themselves. Some of the threads that I've been able to tease out are Alaska Policy Forum, Matsu Republicans, Alaska School of Government, Matsu Chapter of Moms for Liberty, and of course, State of Alaska Attorney General Treg Taylor and Governor Dunleavy's Office of Family and Life. Mr. Fonoff, or Assemblymember Fonoff, as he is now, but then in his interview of February 2nd, 2023, said, and I'm not picking on you, Assemblymember Fonoff, but you talked about freedom, and my question would be, freedom for who? Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Anyone else that would like to address? Yes.
Mayor, Assembly, Jeannie Trushinsky, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was out of town during your last meeting, so I wasn't able to speak with my concerns about the formation of this LCAC. I was in Nebraska where 1.1 million sandhill cranes stop on their migration to Canada, Alaska, and Siberia, and it is considered one of the 3 great migrations of the world, and it is a phenomenal thing. There were still 400,000 cranes when I was there. You know, we're all connected to the world, and we are doing an injustice to the young people in this community when we allow this group to continue to try to, whether they like the word or not, ban books from our young people. Somebody, last time, one of the speakers said, well, how would you consider these 14-year-olds adults? I hate to tell you, but my grandfather left home at the age of 11 and was on his own, and he would have been considered an adult. He was responsible fully for himself. And at that time, many young people were married as teenagers. Now, he didn't marry until much later because he went and fought in World War I. Yeah, they're adults. Teenagerism is a result of the 1950s when there were too many young people that were going to flood the job market, and so we created high schools. And as we all know what high school has become, high school is a place that we hope that we're educating young people more, but they're young adults, and they're referred to in library collections as young adults because they are indeed young adults. You are fooling yourselves if you think these kids don't know what sex is and don't see an awful lot of awful things on their phones and the TV. You should be way more worried about that than books. Books are not a problem. Books are not the problem. These people that want to take away the right for everyone to have access to information, to learn, to read, that's a problem. I cannot understand how there can be someone being nominated tonight for this committee when it's only been 2 weeks since you passed this ordinance, and a week ago on Tuesday when I was trying to find out how you apply for it, I couldn't even, it took me a couple hours to get a straight answer on how I could apply to be on the committee. There is a lot of things about this that seem very disingenuous. It's extremely disappointing there's no librarians on there. Librarians are professionals. They deserve to be treated like professionals, to be treated and included in this. Mr. Fonoff, you want to know something that could be done about this? You could have reached out to your own Borough Library Board committee and asked them some input. You could have got some input from your borough librarians who are professionals before forming this haphazard committee that makes no sense. I'm really concerned for this borough, and I hope you really, really think about what you're doing to our community and the young people in our community.
Anyone else who would like to address the Assembly on any subject? Do we have, well, we have one person online. Go ahead, who's online, please?
Good evening, or hello, Madam Mayor and Assembly. This is Pat Daniels. I think the current RSA process and contract costs are unsustainable. Excuse me. From December 31st, 2023, our average cost was about $7,600 per mile. That cost increased on January of 2024, again in March of 24 with the new bidding contract, and there was additional revisions done on the 1st of April to get to the current cost of $12,800 per mile roughly. Instead of being against, I want to be for a solution or solutions. First and foremost, I would require a rebid process, then establish a standard rebid standard. Excuse me, I said that twice. Based on benchmarks within cost increases from the standard bid or percentage increases from the standard bid. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. We have one more person online, please.
Yeah, hello, this is Steve Edwards, Road Board Chair, and I haven't had a meeting to get a consensus opinion, but I want to speak just as a chair in sort of support of the individual RSAs. Sometimes we struggle to feel heard on the board, and I want to ask you as an assembly to review our minutes, especially if we have a specific meeting, and the current situation is the contracts. We had a meeting on it and asked for some actions to be taken in regards to that with the budget. And those did not make it onto the budget sheet that I saw the last time. So I'm hoping that I guess I can get individual assembly people for each area to speak with their primaries, at least, from their RSAs and get their input into what they want for their contract pricing, what they want for their mill rate, and if they want something different with their contract, to at least listen to that and take that under consideration. In other words, we're putting this volunteer time in to form these advisory recommendations to the Assembly, and we're just asking that you can take each of those RSA's input and consider it when you work on these budget items and the contract approvals. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, we have no one else in line. I'll open it back up to anybody that's in the audience that hasn't testified that would like to address the Assembly on any subject. Okay, seeing and hearing no one, we'll go ahead and close audience participation. And we're at the consent agenda. And does the Assembly have anything else to pull? I have 3 different items so far.
Rob's asking for a break.
Oh, okay. We'll go ahead and take a break till 7:30.
Generous to not give them until 7.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Thought we were going to get out of here. Just hang out. Hey, Estelle, can you turn Lonnie
If I can go ahead and have the assembly come back to order, please.
Unclear.
Yeah, you have to have.
I'm not complaining about this, just to be fair.
Alrighty, I had just asked this question. Had they answered it?
I don't know.
Look,
I don't
they're
think
moving
they
up.
did.
They know
I don't
what's
think
coming.
they did.
Okay. Alrighty. So we are at the consent agenda, and we do have some items that have been pulled earlier. Does the assembly have any additional items to pull?
I don't have an additional one, but I would like to withdraw one. Can I do
Oh,
that here? Now?
sure. Can
Okay,
you
that
ta-
would be 24050, because I'm sure that's going to be addressed pretty fully in, when we meet with the school board. And I also wanted to know how that was going to fold in with that recent decision on correspondence schools and such. So I'm going to throw it away and talk
Okay,
about it another day.
So that's resolution 24-050.
Yeah.
Is that the one that
Yep.
you're putting back in the
Yeah.
pot?
Mhm.
Okay. Ready. Is that even?
I don't think it's a problem. If there's no objection, I think
Okay,
we're
is
fine.
there any objection to re-entering that one? No, okay. Alrighty, so, and I don't think doesn't look like we have any other ones, Madam Clerk.
Resolution
Go ahead, sorry.
Resolution 24044, a resolution approving the scopes of work and budgets for Shirleytown Bridge at Willow Creek, Creek Bank hardening, and Susitna Drive at Susitna River flooding mitigation. Resolution 2449, a resolution approving unincorporated communities for the participation in the fiscal year 2025 Community Assistance Program. Resolution 2450, a resolution establishing the minimum level of funding for the school district from local sources for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, AM 24039. Approval of contract number 2, or approval of change order number 2 for contract number 2431B with Scarcella Brothers for the Central Landfill Grading Project to add $94,338 for grading of the compost and tire recycling area. AM 2440 awarded bid number 24100B to Alaska Resource Group doing business as DNS Road Service in the contract amount of $732,967.70 for Greater Willow Road Service Area number 20 annual road maintenance. AM 24043 awarded bid number 24104B to Alaska Resource Group doing business as DNS Road Service in the contract amount of $737,583.40 for the Greater Talkeetna Road Service Area number 29 annual road maintenance. AM 24044 approval of contract amendment number 2 to contract 24071P with Wolf Architecture to extend contract completion date for the Gateway Visitor Center redesign project to October 15th, 2024. AM 24045 awarded bid number 24110B to Meyer Excavation in the contract amount of $488,470 to construct Settlers Bay Drive at Crocker Creek Fish Passage improvements. 24046 awarded bid number 24112B to Northern Asphalt Construction in the contract amount of $873,356 to construct North Erica Drive road improvements. AM 24047 awarded bid number 24114B to Otna Construction and Primary Products Company in the contract amount of $2,733,125.65 to reconstruct West Lakes Boulevard.
Assemblyperson Benier. Go ahead.
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
Is there any objection? Okay, seeing and hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. And Madam Clerk.
AM 24041 awarded bid number 24102B to Northern Asphalt Construction in the contract amount of $1,771,885 for Meadow Lakes Road Service Area number 27 annual road maintenance and was pulled by Assemblymember McKee.
Okay, Assemblymember McKee, would you move, and then we can discuss?
I move AM 24-041.
Okay, would you like to discuss, or have a staff report, or what would you like to do?
Well, what I'd like to say, I put in a lot of time on this and making my own charts and all this kind of thing, because I am not like a lot of folks that know anything about construction. I just know dirt is dirt, and that's as far as it goes. But I really dug into this thing, and I thought, oh my dear God, look at some of these prices. And I thought some of them were outrageous. And so I came to the borough, to staff, and spoke with them, who gave me a real education on how this stuff works. But what I think the thing that I came away with the meetings most were that the borough is, you're taking care of business, you're looking at the problems, there are changes being made. I love the idea of the one-year contract and that sort of thing, saying, okay, we maybe didn't get everything nailed, but we're gonna, you got a year to work on things. I think one of my concerns was, new blood, you know, a guy with a dump truck and a backhoe coming in and being able to do that. Well, one of the ways to do that is to split up some of those huge road surface area, the mileage. And you guys are doing that. So I said, yes, that's kind of where I was very encouraged about that. The single bids, I was wondering if they had, do they, when I had my house done, I knew exactly what every board and nail cost. And so when people came in and said, well, it's gonna cost you $500,000, I said, seriously, dude, no, that's not happening. So they were telling me that they do have, you know, they may not ever know every nut and bolt, but they don't need to. So they had this idea of what a project should cost. So what do you do about that? If you get a single bid on an item like that, what do you do? Well, they showed me what they did. There were a couple of them that were rejected out of hand because they were so high. There were a couple that were modified. So a lot of my concerns were just by getting this information from these folks telling me that we're moving in the right direction. And that's what is needed. Something that concerned me too was with all the difficulties with settling with the big snowfall a couple years ago, nobody got exactly what they thought they may have deserved. And so I thought, well, are we gonna backdoor it by having some higher bid prices? Maybe, but you can't prove that. But you can look at it and see if there's a pattern kind of a thing going on. So I hope that you will address individually some of the things that I talked about, because all I'm doing is spewing it out there and saying, these were my concerns, you address them. I feel really good about that.
Okay. So, do you want staff to talk a little bit about what are some of the questions you presented? Is that where
Absolutely
we're
do.
at?
Yeah, I would like the public to have the benefit of hearing
Okay.
what I was able to get from them.
Okay, okay. Alrighty, staff, if you go ahead then. Thank you, sir.
Russ, you gotta turn your mic on.
Through the mayor to the assembly manager. So, yeah, as Assemblymember McKee noted, she did come into our office today, and the Public Works Director, Tom Adams, and I sat down with her and kind of walked through the process. It's a very unique year this year in terms of the road maintenance contract bidding. We have a lot of them that hit at once. We have a new contract format that we're using. We've incorporated in some items that the contractors have asked for, such as the public construction component. And we're also rolling in some items that we would typically contract out to other people in the form of the crack sealing and the road striping. So the idea is we were trying to make kind of a holistic approach to each RSA and have a single contractor working with the borough and responsible for all of that activity. So that it created a whole new environment when we got ready to bid this out. And we are all very aware that the costs have gone up. We've listened to the contractors over the last few years talk about it. You all have been briefed on this in the past in one form or another. So we were kind of walking into the great unknown when we got ready to bid. We had numbers in our head where we thought these costs were going to come in. And I think some of us were pretty close. But as the bids started opening up, we started to see a wide range, and we've talked to the contractors and asked about that. Now, specifically with this RSA, with RSA 27, and this also applies to the other AM RSA 28, what we experienced was a single bidder. A single bidder in an RSA is not all that uncommon, unfortunately. We don't have a lot of contractors that this is really what they specialize in doing. Road maintenance is different than road construction. It's a year-round commitment. It's harder for them to kind of gauge what that cost is going to be. They can estimate the amount of time they're going to be out there, the labor, the equipment and everything, but they can't put a hard number on it like a bid where we tell them this is exactly how much work you have to perform. So as the numbers started rolling in, we had some very favorable bids, and we had some bids that were, we thought, way off the charts, and we could not justify moving forward with the award. And not only could we not justify it, in some cases we could not afford it. It would absolutely make a mess of the RSA budgets 1 year, 2 year, or even 3 years out. So in the case of RSA 27 and RSA 28, we approached the single bidder and we started talking with him to see what we could do. Borough Code allows us to do this, even though it's a bid. If the bid exceeds the amount of money that the certifying officer, the financial director, will certify for that award, I have the option to pull it, rescope it, and put it back out again, or to work with that bidder to reduce scope to bring it within the parameters of what we can afford. So that's what we did. We did that actually with 5 of the RSAs for the first round. 2 of them are up for award tonight. So RSA 27 and 28, we approached Northern Asphalt and Construction, who was the single bidder. They are also the incumbent that is currently maintaining those areas. And we started working with them back and forth. The manager, myself, Director Adams, we were all kind of had our fingers in this, trying to come up with a way that we could get the contract framed that we could afford, not only just for the maintenance, but also it wouldn't jeopardize the other 3 components that make up the road maintenance, the smaller construction and then the larger capital projects. So when it all came down to it, this was the numbers that are being presented to you are what we ended up with. Now, missing from this legislation, and I realize it now, is what the actual per mile cost is. So for RSA 27, the per mile cost negotiated with Northern Asphalt is $12,800 a mile. You will see that number or numbers very close to that again as we go through these awards. The cuts that we made to the contract were minor. I mean, essentially what we have agreed to do is we're going to maintain the same berm policy that we currently have, which is a maximum of 12 berm. And we have agreed to work with Northern to come up with a solution with them on the vehicle tracking and the problem reporting. Northern is doing all the work. There's never a doubt about that. It's just how do we get all that data into problem reporter and monitor what they're doing. And they are open to it. They have some concerns about the way we have proposed to do that project, so we've agreed to sit down and we're working on a solution so that we can get that. And at that point, we'll go ahead and we'll move forward with those programs within that contract. But what is before you is a $12,800 per mile negotiated contract.
Okay. Assemblyperson McKee is.
I just wanted to ask about tracking, the problem reporter thing. And when the snow fell hard and so much, you said the system was overwhelmed. You're still going to use it, but are there any changes to that?
We are not, to Assemblymember McKee through the mayor, we are not abandoning problem reporting.
That's good.
There's a person sitting in front of me that is very adamant about it. We have offered that to the public, and to take it away from them now would not be a good thing.
And then what has been referred to as a GPS tracking system, I don't exactly know, I know what GPS means, but so that you can keep track of, because that was a problem, it seemed before, keep track of, okay, this equipment's doing this work in this place at this time and for this long. Correct. We got that?
To Assemblymember McKee through the mayor. So the system that we have proposed utilizes iPhones, iPads, tablet, that type of a thing, a cellular based system. And really the way we presented it was to have the contractor have their employees install an app on their phone. And then all they would do when they get into the vehicle is they would turn it on. So it would essentially track them through the process, and then when they were done, they would turn it off. That data is not available real data is not available to the public. It's only available to the borough, and it would be available to the contractor. Some of the contractors are concerned because their employees aren't really smartphone type people, and others have raised concerns about their employees are concerned about privacy issues, installing something on their phone and then others can track them. So we're addressing those. Those are valid concerns that are being brought forward. So we're working with them. We have explored, one of the options we looked at was using Apple iTags. It does not appear that's gonna work, so we're looking at other solutions. You know, there are a lot of systems out there that we can work with. We're trying to find one that'll serve our needs, that's economical, and we can get it done, and it'd be more of a passive system for them. They would just simply install it on their equipment, or when somebody gets ready to dispatch out, they would grab one from the office and put it in their equipment, and we would still collect that data.
Yeah.
We're working through that right now. Northern has not said they're opposed to a system like that. So as we work through this, we will get there. But we want to get these contracts moving, get them in place so that after the budget is approved, we can start getting these guys moving, because July 1, all these new contractors pick up the responsibility of that area in July 1. We don't have a lot of time after the budget to kind of retool anything at this point.
Okay, Ron, Assemblyperson Yon?
Yeah, I want to take a quick second here and thank Mike and Tom and Russ for the new contract. I've read through every inch of it. I think this is a much better contract than we had in the past. There will not be gray areas and discretion. I'm really excited about it. I know we all had hoped for more bidders. We did not pick up a single new bidder. Well, maybe one, but has members on their team that had worked in the past and done it, right? So we didn't pick up any new bidders. So I just want to throw a few ideas out there. I think the 2-year municipal experience, we may want to reconsider that and reduce the word, or get rid of the word municipal. There are a lot of great private sector companies out there who have not worked for governments. They could do a darn fine job. If they see that, maybe they've seen that and said, well, we can't bid because we've never worked for the city of Wasilla or Palmer or Borough. I don't know, right? So I think that's something to consider for next year. I also think we need to consider in the future potentially having a summertime and a wintertime contract. And I want to speak to that a little bit. There are a lot of contractors who could do snow work that don't have the expertise to deal with drainage and ditching and all the things that goes into summertime work. Summertime work is a lot more detail orientated and takes a lot more experience. And so if we want to get more people in the game, these are a couple things I think we should consider for next year. But again, I want to circle back and thank Mike and Tom and Russ. It's been a long year, and I think when you look at inflation from where it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, especially what we've seen in the last 3 years, and then you add in things like potential electronic tracking, problem reporter that didn't used to exist years ago, I'm not surprised with these prices at all. I think we all want to do better, but they're not off the charts, and so with all those things considered, so I do hope we find a way to get more bidders here next year. So, thanks.
Assemblyperson Fauna?
Mr. Ross, what do you, to me, when I talked to a couple contractors, one of the biggest thing was for the new guys to trying or thinking about getting in was, well, this contract it's so big, but I only have 1, 2 graders, couple snowplow trucks, that type of thing. Says if it was half or smaller size, so that was a big thing that I spoke up previously on it. Did you had any was there any questions from the contractors that potentially that would have bid, that didn't bid? What else could be done so that we are attracting newer, possibly smaller contractors?
To Assemblymember Fano through the mayor. There have been a lot of ideas put out there. The smaller RSA, breaking them up into pieces. We've talked about it. We've discussed it. The Public Works Director and I were just talking about it again. There's complications that come along with that. There's more contracts to manage, more contractors out there. It is a way to potentially develop more contractors. But here's an idea that I would say to somebody is, if you have a desire to do this work and the areas just seem too big, find another person that also has that desire to break into it. It doesn't have to be a single company. It can be one. You can form a company And all of the parts brought in, so 2 or 3 different individuals that have a desire to do this, that have some equipment, can form a company. They can qualify. If any of the single individuals qualify, the whole company would qualify. So at that point, they could go ahead and they could find some of these small, we have RSAs that range from 14 miles to 175 miles. There's a lot of them in that 40, 50 range that 2 qualified contractors teaming up and bidding it together could easily manage something like that. Our zones, if we're looking at splitting up 17 right now, okay? 17 has 4 zones, 175 miles. We're going to break it essentially in half. They're not going to be equal, but we're going to break it in half. But Big Lake has 4 zones, each about 25 miles. If we took 2 of them, put them together, a 50-mile RSA could easily be done by 2 small-size contractors. They wouldn't have to bring a lot of it in. Under the old requirements, for a 50-mile RSA, you'd have to have 2 graders, 2 primary snow removal items. So it doesn't require a lot of equipment to do something like that. And we've made it easier because we've removed the requirements for having those minimum equipments. We have very few requirements in it about what type of equipment you have to have. So if they come in with equipment that they feel as though is capable of performing the work, 2 contractors could team up, take on a 50-mile RSA, and bid it. And if they're successful and they can prove that they're qualified, we can talk about qualifications. But if they can prove that they're qualified and they submit their bid the correct way, I can award it. It's very easy, but they have to have those qualifications. So.
It's something Rob brought up and wanted to ask. Has the requirement for 2-year municipal snow removal has always been there, or is that something that's recently been added? And how to justify for someone who has never done work, because that's potentially right away no-go for a newer contractor, even though he's fully capable. What's the history of that requirement?
To Assemblymember Fonoff through the mayor. The manager might have the information, so he can correct my dates. But back in, I'm going to say 2019. You want me to grab it? I got it. Well, I can just give them the overview. In and around 2019 was a contentious year for awarding road service contractors. We had some new contractors trying to break in, and it got rather interesting. I'll just put it that way. Coming out of that whole bidding cycle, Assemblymember Tam Bovee had requested the mayor to establish a group, a task force, whatever you want to call it, to take a look specifically at 3 items within the road bidding, the road contracts, and one of those was minimum qualifications. That panel was made up of 2 assembly members, Jesse Sumner, Tam Bovee, 2 RSA board members, Mike, I can't think of Mike's last name now. Mike Shields and DJ McBride, and then the public works director, who was Terry Dolan at the time, Mike Lackle, who was one of the RSA supers, and myself. And we went through what the previous qualifications were. The previous qualifications were a lot more stringent than what we have right now. And that group came up with the qualifications that appear in our bid packet right now. I mean, that exact same document appeared in the report that was presented back to the Assembly. And we have not changed that to date. So in terms of the minimum requirements, we are simply following direction of what the Assembly had given us at that point. So if we were to change that, my personal view is that direction would have to come either from the Assembly to the manager to me, or directly from the Assembly to adjust those qualifications.
Oh, do you want to?
Go ahead.
Mike has something.
I was just going to say, through the mayor, so I have a copy of that. I'll get it to the clerk. We'll get you all copies. Because it's fairly recent material. Obviously, the Assembly's had thoughts on this before. So to Russ's point, we're following what the last set of guidance that came out in 2020, in July of 2020. So I'll share that just so you can see what the rationale was, because it details why they picked the minimum qualification language that they did. And so just so you have that for context, certainly this is a different assembly, and that could be revisited if that's the desire of the body.
Well, certainly if that's potentially one of the small things that's preventing new bidders to get in, which automatically disclose, I want that to be looked by at least case by cases, at least consider experience that outside of municipal, on the private sector to be also considered as a experience, because we don't want to just disqualify someone just on that one factor alone is what my way of thinking in this situation.
Comment. To Assemblymember Fanoff, through the mayor. I believe the type of experience you're talking about is work on parking lots, private development. One of the requirements in there specifically says municipal roads and discards airports parking lots. It says that you can use those in your overall experience, but you can't use them as the sole determining factor to say that you have the 2 years of experience. It was actually, when they wrote the final qualifications, it specifically states in there that those items cannot be used. So again, if we want to change that to allow that type of thing, I don't feel that I have the ability to simply waive that. If I did, and there were 2 bids, the second bidder would have a grounds for protest that I couldn't defeat that. I mean, it's published right in there, you must have this. I think Nick would defend me, but he'd probably shake his head while he's doing it. So I couldn't conscionably do that.
Okay. Well, my question is Manager Brown, then how, based on that, line alone, how new bidders who don't have that to get in, basically I personally talked to a contractor who had issue with the miles, but it's not till recently that I knew about the municipal experience. That's something once they probably would have started reading, they were like, oh, we're out. So there's a couple episodes, so I would like to change that, and I think Assembly would approve that, because if we're splitting potentially, you said one, the RSAs, and we are trying to bring the price down by getting more competitiveness going on. Right now, the only ones that have advantage or pretty much ability to bid is those that already had that meet that qualification. And I don't think that's fair to the new contractors.
Yeah, so through the mayor to the assembly, so what we've been doing is making incremental changes. It's kind of like a science experiment where you take and change 5 different things and try to figure out what caused your outcome. You have no idea because there were no controls and a ton of variables. So what we've been doing this year, we removed the performance bond, right? That helped to reduce the perceived barrier of entry. We reduced the minimum equipment requirements. We didn't say that there wasn't any equipment required, but we didn't specify a number based on the road mileage. Those 2 changes were just incorporated in the contracts, plus their 1-year contracts. Certainly we can look at some other changes, but I mean, basically we're gonna get to the point where we have no minimum qualifications. And so what I'm looking at is, it's not all about cost. There's some balancing it to the quality of service. I would argue we have the best level of service out here. I would say that against either of the 2 cities and the Department of Transportation, and I know we're better than Anchorage. So I don't want to see that go away because we're hyper-focused on cost, and we are like, yeah, we'll let the quality of service go because we just want the lowest prices ever. So we're trying to strike a balance, and we're going to continue to learn from the contracts, and we're going to continue to make changes. And as we make changes, contractors are going to make changes. As they make changes, we're going to make changes. That's what's happening right now. We saw it for the past couple of years, and the systems are adjusting to one another because we're not willing to accept certain things, and they're trying to do things that we don't necessarily agree with, so we're gonna modify the contracts. I don't have a problem with reducing it, but I'll use Battleground as an example. They've already been talked about publicly. It's a public bid anyway. Battleground has no municipal experience as a company, but the people that they submitted in one of their bids have names that will perform services that have municipal experience. That is good enough by what the assembly set up back in 2020. So they're going to qualify, I think, based on what they put together and submitted. The company doesn't have any municipal experience. It is not a barrier to them getting into the market. The issue previously was that they had a name on there of a former assembly member. That set aside is okay now, but they have a couple of workforce folks that have done road maintenance with other companies in the past, and that's acceptable to us. So I guess my argument would be they got in. We just need more people like that to get in. And the other concern, I want to kind of hit on the service area thing, and I don't think it's certainly not illegal, it's not an issue in the sense of can or can't we do it. I'm just mindful of how it could be perceived by the public. And I'll just say in general, I'm not going to name an RSA, but let's just say you have an RSA and we want to split it. And we split it and you have two distinct, discrete contracts. Say one comes in at $8,000 a mile and one comes in at $12,000 a mile. We tax the service area as one entity. I think what we would do is we would bring that forward, award two contracts, but the mill rate's going to be assessed as an aggregate. Right? So, but you could have people that are in the 8,000 per mile sector zone of the RSA going, why am I paying the average to compensate for their higher cost per mile? Those are voter-defined boundaries. So I'm like, the voters established that. We ought to try to honor that the best we can. Now, with RSA 17, we got one bid and it was ridiculous. I'll just call it what it was. So we rejected it. So we're going to have to do something different. But we were forced into that situation. It's not a situation we just ran into and said, let's start splitting RSAs. It'll lead to a better outcome. And so I go back to where I started, incremental changes. And we'll continue to do that until we get the results that we're satisfied with. And that may never happen. We may just continue to make changes because every time we make one, the market's going to adjust, right? So we'll live and learn. And we'll see where it lands, and we are going to get the opportunity to bid probably another 5 or 6 RSAs next summer or next spring. And oh, by the way, any of these 9 that we choose could also be rebid in the spring. And there's already a couple I got my eye on that I'm like, I don't really love this number. We might just want to pull it in a year and put it right back out and see what it comes. And we might have to split it because it's big, maybe, or whatever. But we got to get through this cycle. I would argue this is an iterative process. We're going to continue to work on it. We're not going to get there this year.
If we pulled the contract next year to rebid, like you said, of those high, but there was no fault on the contractor, we just thought that we could get by, that a contractor is allowed to bid on that same RSA, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, through the mayor. So any termination next year of any of the contracts we're going to bring forward to you the next month, we can terminate or they can terminate, no harm, no foul, right? And they're able to rebid on those contracts again.
Just a point of clarification to the manager through the mayor and to somebody Mayor Fanoff. Yeah, we've essentially created an off-ramp. Yes. So they will have the ability to say, I want out. The borough will also have that ability to say, no, we want you out. In that case, they can turn around and rebid it right away. If there's a termination for fault, if they fail to meet the terms of the contract and we terminate them under that clause of the contract, then they may not be eligible. I mean, it depends on what comes out of the termination. Typically, we negotiate at that point, but we have never allowed a contractor to rebid a contract that they have been terminated from on any of these road service contracts.
Okay. It's pretty unlikely.
Yeah.
In a year.
Yeah, with the off-ramp, it's pretty unlikely.
Could I ask a question about inflation, because obviously that plays a part in this? Can you give me an example of a piece of equipment that cost, I don't know, $5 4 years ago, and now it costs $400? Can you, because I don't have any perspective there.
Well, I can't give you exact, or to somebody remember McKee through the mayor, I can't give you exact numbers, but I do know that I've talked to a few contractors, and it's not only a grader.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the cost of that equipment, although those have gone up, but even something like buying it out of state and trying to get it up here. You know, I had one contractor that told me it costs about 30% of what that grader costs just to get it here and get it put in service. So a $300,000 grader is going to cost an additional $100,000 to get it up here and get it in place, because they can do it with equipment that exists in the state, but it's older. It may not be what they want to be using. It's not as effective. So when they're looking to invest that kind of money, a lot of the RSA contractors are looking to buy a piece of equipment that is very young in its life and is going to be reliable for them. It doesn't do them any good to buy equipment that's going to sit there and be broke. So, you know, some of the biggest items that we've heard that have gone up are items such as the cutting edges, the oils. A lot of those items, those construction-related and this type of maintenance contract, those prices are accelerating more than the prices that all of us are seeing just in our general living.
How about wages? What does that look like, 5 years ago versus today? I mean,
To Assemblymember McKee through the manager. One of the biggest things hurting us right now is how successful things are going up on the North Slope. All of the talented, qualified equipment operators right now, not all of them, but a lot of the talented, qualified equipment operators right now are looking at these jobs, which require them to be available 52 weeks a year, and in most cases, there's not necessarily a guarantee of hours every week, as opposed to go up to the slope and work 2 on, 2 off. Put in your time, make $50 an hour up there, and come back here and you have half your year off. One contractor that we've talked to a lot says, where they were paying $30 an hour for hands a year and a half ago, they're having to pay almost $50, and they're having to guarantee their employees that they're going to pay them at least 32 or 36 hours a week. So that's where that labor cost is going up. I think that's what we're seeing a lot in this is they have to pay their employees in order to retain their employees and keep the contract moving.
you can kind of see that reflected in the community as well. I mean, there's for hire signs all over the place and just trying to get people to, I don't know, do whatever it is they need to do. I talked to my insurance agent and I said, how come this is happening? He said, well, we can't get anybody to work. So, yeah, I see that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
So through the mayor, I just wanted to wrap up the minimum qualifications conversation. The clerk's got a copy. We'll share that. Just take a look at what the assembly did back then and what that committee did and what their logic was. I think it's not going to affect this round of bidding because we're down that road. But it certainly could affect next year. So take a look. If you want to talk about what changes could be made and what you would like to see done, just reach out and let me know. And we'll have that conversation and figure out how to move that forward. Does that sound like a reasonable way to kind of land it for today? Or at least that portion.
Okay. Is there any objection to AM 24-041? Okay, hearing no objection, then it has been approved. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
AM 24042 awarded bid number 24103B to Northern Asphalt Construction in the contract amount of $2,259,377 for Gold Trail Road Service Area number 28 annual road maintenance.
Assemblyperson McKee, can you move that, please?
If I want to withdraw it, because we just pretty much covered it, do I have to move it as well?
Why don't you just move it, and I'll ask if there's any
Okay,
objection,
all right.
and we'll be done.
I move to adopt AM 24-042.
Okay, is there any objection? Yes, Assemblyperson.
I think this is one is, if I remember correctly, this one's in the area that I live in. I want to say that the contractor has been doing a good job in the past few years that's been there. I've seen the owner late at night or early morning of the whole company in the grader himself. So they're doing the best they can. Obviously, we have a big snowfalls. It's difficult to get to, but I didn't have any complaints. I'm happy that they're able to continue to service that area, and I think that, from my understanding by talking to Mr. Brown, this one of the factors that went into negotiating is by them being able to have more than one contract, is being able to bring the price a little lower. So in some cases, it was a good thing, but also, but I just want to give them credit where credit due for doing a good work as well.
I don't take that as an objection. Does anybody have an objection? If not, then the legislation passes. Madam Clerk.
Introduction for public hearing on May 7th is ordinance 2420 with accompanying ordinance 2421, ordinance 2422 with accompanying ordinance 2423, ordinance 2425 with accompanying ordinance 2426, ordinance 2430 and ordinance 2447 with accompanying resolution 2445, ordinance 2448 with accompanying resolution 2446, ordinance 2449, and ordinance 2450 with accompanying resolution 24048, and for public hearing on April 24th, April 25th, and April 30th is ordinance 2424.
Deputy Mayor.
I move to introduce the legislation as read into the record by the clerk and set the public hearings for April 23rd, 2024, April 25th, 2024, April 30th, 2024, and May 7th, 2024, respectively.
Okay, is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, then the legislation is introduced. Deputy Mayor, vacancy report.
I move to confirm the mayor's recommendation as follows. Board of Equalization, resignation of James Bradley Young. Port Commission, resignation of Robert Brown. Transportation Advisory Board, Jillian Morrissey.
Okay, is there discussion on the vacancy report? Is there any objection? Okay, hearing no objection, the only thing I would like to say is you heard some testimony this evening. The procedure for applying for the new committee regarding book review is the same as it has been for any appointments that we've made. The applications are readily available on the borough website. Estelle, gets the application. The procedure is she sends it to me after she verifies that they are a registered voter, and then she puts in what district they are in, and then and she sends it to Julian and also to the assembly person for that district. And so I don't think, and the other thing is we do, in the vacancy report you looked at tonight, I think there's only like one person. We have had numerous applications since that time. And so in order for them like to appear on the May 7th, because we have to have them listed on the agenda report in the vacancy, they're going to have to apply by April 26th. So there is that almost 10-day lead time. And so it isn't a matter of you put your application in today and it ends up being, considered at the agenda on the assembly tonight. So, yes, assembly.
I want to clarify, we did not confirm anyone to the
Right.
library board, is that correct?
That's right. We did
So
not.
whoever spoke that was inaccurate.
Right.
Just
right.
want
Yeah.
to confirm that, okay.
Yeah, we did not confirm anybody tonight for that committee. Okay, there is no new business, there's no referrals, there are no reconsiderations. Mr. Attorney, parting comments?
I'm waiting for the day when somebody pays off their taxes, but the assembly votes no to remove them from the sale. Well, I don't know how that would work, but, I just had a thought on that. No comments. Mr. Ashenbrenner and I will be heading to the National Attorneys Conference, so next Tuesday night for your budget public hearing up in Willow. Shannon Beaudelet will staff the meeting. She'll be there. It's a public hearing, so we don't expect a lot to happen, but I'll let you know. I'll be back, and I'll be with you for the Thursday night meeting in
Oh, okay.
Wasilla.
Okay. Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments?
Just very briefly, thanks to the staff for the information that we got. I really feel now I really have a really good understanding about how all this process works. I think we're heading in the right direction. Can somebody tell me who does my area, RS 14, right now? Because I'd like to give them a shout out. They just do amazing things.
Yeah, through the mayor, to Ms. McKee, RSA 14 today is Big Dipper Construction.
Okay, they get out there and, I mean, if there's a snowflake on the ground, somebody's looking at it. So I really appreciate that. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, parting comments, sir?
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and thank the Lord for our longer days. Thank you for your blessings to this borough. Please keep our veterans and first responders in your prayers, everyone. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
Parting comments, Assemblyperson Nauhaus.
Thank you. It was great to see the acknowledgement of Mr. Christensen's work, Go Moose. I think a lot of people are aware of what he's done in this community and the family name, but that's fantastic. Speaking of Palmer family names, and because the Palmer Museum of History and Art came up, and that's such a gem in our community, and people may not realize this, and I didn't know it. Richard Estelle, who works there, my daughter volunteered there or worked there for a summer. She got to assist Richard Estelle, and if you don't know that name, the Estelles have been around since the colony days. His mother was involved with being the extension agent for the Matt Valley colonists, helping them learn how to homestead, and was the first secretary of the Alaska State Fair that was at the time like the Matt Valley Agricultural and Industrial Expo. And Richard works down in the basement of that building, so if you ever go there, and you can, he spends all of his time cataloging much of the colonist history. They have put a lot of the photos online. They have thousands of photos. They have just amazing artifacts from that time. And so I would say I find this trend that I don't know when it started, where you get upset with one thing that some entity has done, and then you're just, the entity is bad, and we're going to throw that entity out. There's, I would suggest to folks who are having issues with the Palmer Museum, take the time to go visit and find out what they're doing and volunteer. They could use help. They have thousands and thousands of photos, literally, that need to be put online. A lot of those from the colonist era. And then just a last thing I found out because of my daughter's work there is that there's a lot of history before the colonists came here, including the native history, but also settlers who were here before. And they were not so happy with the colonists. And I don't think a lot of people know that history, but the colonists got money from the feds to use at the store. The people who are already here didn't get that deal. So, you know, there's always, when you dig into history, it's a little more complicated than the, you know, shortened version. So encourage people to go to visit there. And then I just want to talk for just a minute about energy, because I think there's a lot of, it came up at the Palmer Chamber, and it made me realize a lot of people do not understand how independent power producers work. So the solar farm in Houston came up, and the question was, how much did that cost us? And the answer was, it didn't cost us anything. It was a privately financed entity that made a contract with MEA to sell power at a certain price. And so when we're talking about independent power producer, I think it's important to realize that these are entities that are trying to make generation projects, and then they're coming up with a price that the utility has to agree on and the regulatory commission has to approve. So in the case of the solar farm, they are selling power to MEA at $68 a megawatt hour, which is less, according to Julie Estee, who's speaking, than the utility can produce right now at their Eklutna plant for natural gas. In comparison, we were talking about a coal plant that was $110 a megawatt hour. So right now, I just want to put these figures in your head. I just want to keep having this conversation because energy is complicated. Right now, that solar farm is saving money compared to natural gas generation, and saves a lot compared to a potential coal plant that has a lot of uncertainties. And that contract is locked in for 20 years with a 1.5% escalator. So all of a sudden, if you were going to be purchasing energy just from the solar farm, you would know what it would cost for 20 years from now. You don't have that certainty with our natural gas supply. You know, that might double next year. So and lastly, I just want to say the other thing that people have mentioned is, well, wind and solar don't blow all the time. Solar's not there for us in the winter. There is 11 billion cubic feet of natural gas storage at the Singsa facility, which is the main one that we use to draw from in the winter. And there's other storage as well around Cook Inlet. So the fact that solar is not shining in the winter doesn't mean that it's not something we can add to the system and have benefit from it. It means that that solar that we produce in the summer is gas that we can store for the winter and use then. So when we're talking about our natural gas supply and how to stretch it, that's relevant. And if you just want one other, I know I've exceeded the amount of figures you can keep in your head, but 11 billion cubic feet of storage for natural gas just at that one facility, and that's by far the largest. The amount of natural gas we use in a year is 70 billion cubic feet. 20 billion cubic feet of that is electricity. So if you just kind of want to, play with numbers and see what we could generate from other sources and how that would help us store natural gas and how much gas we would use. And I could talk for hours, but we got to get out of here. So thank you.
Mike, you have parting comments?
Just to be very brief, through the mayor, your budget books are before you. We start public hearings next week, but if you have questions about specific line items, departments, et cetera, reach out to Cheyenne or I. We're happy to sit down and talk you through it. So just let us know. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, okay. Assemblyperson Yount, parting comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, so I've had some conversations this last few days with members from Sutton and Chickaloon area that have called me concerned about a potential agreement between the Department of Public Safety and the Chickaloon Tribal Police Department. So I will say this, it's not my area of expertise. I don't have an opinion either way, but it is concerning to me that something that could be this big of a transition, they've only had one meeting for the public to attend. It was not.
They've had 3.
According to everybody that has called me, there was only one that they were notified about. So, and then.
And they had one, 18 months ago and
Yeah.
one about a year ago, yeah.
Yeah, so, and we've all seen in many different situations, that's probably
Yeah.
the case, right? I'm just saying, they put together a list of questions that they have emailed over or sent over to the Department of Public Safety and have not gotten answers to any of those. So my opinion is that I just hope that it's slowed down and there's enough public process to come out of it with a good agreement. That's it. So it's not my area of the Matsu Borough. I don't have an opinion either way. I just want to see plenty of public process and everybody's questions get answered. That's it. So.
Our deputy borough manager did attend the last meeting and brought back the maps. And if you missed Mike's Wednesday report of last week, I think there were like 3 pages in there of the report that came forth. And so, and as far as I know, that's been posted on the website. So that would maybe help answer some of the questions. So, yeah. Okay, parting comments, Assemblyperson Gamble?
I have none.
Yeah, because doesn't Mike's report go onto the website?
It goes onto the manager's page, yes.
Yeah, onto the manager's page, yeah. Thank you for that clarification. Assemblyperson Fanoff, parting remarks?
Thank you so much. To the people that mentioned a lot of my name, I want to say I wish you well. You are not here. I still stand by my the ordinance that we passed, and I think it's a good thing for our community. I think much rather have citizens decide on the challenge book than the librarians. So I hope that it will work out well, and then ultimately will reflect what we were put here for. So that's it. That's it.
Okay. Assemblyperson Hale, are you still with us? Do you have parting comments, sir?
I am, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I didn't have any comment, but I would like to address Mr. Yount's concerns about the Chickaloon Tribal Police possible agreement with the Department of Public Safety. I will be bringing forward a resolution to the Assembly asking the department to delay their decision on that subject until they have had more public outreach on the subject. I'm hoping to get it on the next agenda. So expect that to come forward. again, the Department of Public Safety does seem to think that it's a good idea, as it will help them manage their resources better. But there is a lot of questions and concerns from the residents of the area that need to be answered before any decision is made. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And there's no executive session, so without objection, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:26 PM.